India's One Health mission is that to understand what jumps from human to animals, irrespective of whether it causes an outbreak, but to understand the spillovers at a very, very early stage so that we can be prepared with countermeasures. So if I don't know what will jump, what will spill across the interface, how will I start making countermeasures?
Hello and welcome to ICMR Radio, our one platform aimed at unpacking health research in India. Now, we all know diseases don't really recognize boundaries. They traverse from humans, animals, and to the environment. In fact, some would say that they actually thrive when these ecosystems intersect. So, in an interconnected world, a holistic approach to public health, to disease prevention is probably the imperative, which brings us to our conversation today on One Health, or India's One Health mission. On ICMR Radio, I'm Anubha Bhonsle, and we're extremely privileged to have Dr. Nivedita Gupta with us. She's the head of the Communicable Diseases Division at the Indian Council of Medical Research, or the ICMR, and someone who's spearheading India's One Health mission. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta. It's so good to have you here, and I am really looking forward to learning a lot from you.
Thank you, Anubha.
I think let's start sort of at the basic. How would you describe One Health or India's One Health mission to, let's say, a layperson?
Now, if you look back in the past 2 decades, the diseases that have actually caused shudders to us, the first I would allude to is the Nipah virus outbreak that happened in 2001 in Bangladesh and India simultaneously. And then in West Bengal, 2 outbreaks happened. And then every year in Kerala, we have Nipah virus outbreaks. And they lead to quite a number of deaths. And it's a highly fatal infection. Mortality ranges from 50 to 89%. And this spills over from bats. So bats which are staying in the wild, they spill over or they throw this infection to humans. And infection to such a bad extent that they really have a bad respiratory disease, and then encephalitis, their brain and nervous system gets involved and they die within a couple of hours. And it's highly infective even from person to person. Mm-hmm. So then really it intrigues that how this infection spills over from bats to humans. And since it's not causing disease in the bats, it's so difficult even to catch the early signs of infection. And this infection also has been spread in Bangladesh by drinking date palm sap, which was infected with bat urine and bat saliva. So people were just fermenting date palm sap on the trees, collecting sap from the trees. And the bat also likes the date palm sap that the humans want to drink. And it also drinks from the same pot and urinates in that. And when the humans drink that, they get infected and they die. So it's that bad. People do something, then suddenly they get sick. Nobody is able to understand why they got sick. But I think if we are cognizant of what can happen, I think that's a very useful piece to look at now, that we need to be aware, we need to know what to do, what not to do, how to take care of the health of animals, environment for our own well-being. So I think that concept really has been collectively brought together in the National One Health Mission. And this is a very good effort which has been brought together collectively, bringing 14 different ministries and departments. And this is now spearheaded by the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, his office. Mm-hmm. And we are at DHR, ICMR, we are the secretariat to execute and implement the activities of the One Health Mission, along with various partners, as I said.
Dr. Gupta, we'll get into what you're describing are the various ministries who are coordinating this effort. We want to try and understand how this actually works on the ground. But I'm interested, all or many of the diseases that you've spoken about, these have been with us forever. I think it'll be interesting for our audience to understand as to what was happening prior. What was disease prevention in the conventional sense before we came on this realization of the One Health mission?
I think the approach towards tackling problems which have a One Health importance was very fragmented in nature. But what this mission brings now is a mandate to every organization and accountability of every organization to work together whenever there is an outbreak, now there is a National Joint Outbreak Response Team. We call it NJORT. This NJORT is led by NCDC, National Center for Disease Control, under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and with ICMR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Animal Husbandry, Food Safety, and Jal Shakti Mission, everybody being an integral part of this committee, and there is a government notification which has been issued. So it's a very collective kind of an effort. And any outbreak, you really don't know in the beginning whether it really stems from animals, environment, unless you go there and investigate collectively. Sure. So previously, people from health were going, if there was a human illness outbreak, people from the animal side were going if there was an animal outbreak, but they were not working collectively. They work on the ground and they really investigate all facets.
Sort of fascinating nuts and bolts that actually break down the One Health mission, the One Health concept. If you can give us an example of how it actually works on the ground or has worked on the ground with an outbreak or with a disease.
So one beautiful example that comes to my mind is the acute encephalitis syndrome outbreaks which were reported in Gorakhpur. So if you remember that Gorakhpur used to report from 2005, they had a very large outbreak of acute encephalitis syndrome, and that too in pediatric age group, where very small children, poor children, and of low socioeconomic strata particularly, they were dying. They were getting infected in several thousands. So at that point in time, we really formed a task force and we brought together all our relevant institutes, including National Institute of Virology, Epidemiology, then also our Enterovirus Research Center, Malaria Research, Vector Control Research. Everyone was brought together and we worked on mission mode along with several ministries and departments. So eventually what we discovered was that there's an infection known as scrub typhus, which is caused by a bacterial family, which is the rickettsial family. Okay. The infection has been there for more than 100 years, but nobody ever paid attention and nobody thought it's a public health problem. So people were ignoring it for quite some time, but then this came to be the pathogen that we started detecting in the encephalitis children. Now we wondered where is it coming from, because it's a vector borne. It's actually transmitted by the bite of the mites. So then where are these mites coming from? How are they reaching the children? It really became a very complex issue. And do the children straight away present with acute encephalitis or there is a slow progression? Nobody knew anything. So we did a series of studies and very beautifully we could find out our Vector Control Research Center actually caught hold of Sancus murinus, which is in common language known as chuchundar.
Yeah.
So these chuchundars were there in the households of people. And when our institute captured Sancus murinus, they had a lot of mites sitting in their ear pinna. So they actually sacrificed the ear pinna, tested it for scrub typhus, and it was positive. So what was happening is that these children, since they belong to low socioeconomic strata, they were sleeping on the floors and the mites would just get down, disembark from the ear pinna of the Sancus murinus, and they would be on the floors, they would bite the children and they would communicate this infection to them. So we did a lot of advocacy along with state government and also advocated the use of azithromycin and doxycycline. Give it empirically in monsoon season for 3 months to every fever case, and that's how it dropped. So it's a beautiful example on how these collective effort of various multi-sectoral organizations can actually control diseases which are so challenging.
How does that work at a global level? What do we learn from the world and what can we teach the world in that sense?
If you look at what US does, so US CDC also runs a One Health program, but what they do is that their One Health programs are very vertical programs. So the animal side would work in a very specific way, the human side would work in a specific way, environment component vertical would be separate. But their data sharing mechanisms are very, very robust and very strong, both data sharing as well as data triangulation.
Okay.
So if you share data and you don't make any sense out of it, then it's useless. but their data sharing and triangulation mechanisms are strong, much stronger than us, I should confess that. And that's how they are able to pick up early signals, though they also miss some signals like the recent outbreak of H5N1 in cattle.
And
The event happened and then they picked it up. So their systems in terms of integration, triangulation, I think are very strong. That's what I get a sense of when I read about all their efforts. And similarly, I have also seen that Japan also has a very robust system of One Health, whereas they have a National Center for Global Medicine and Health, which actually holds or anchors all the One Health related activities. So I think all the countries, developed countries, now have a One Health approach, and whether it is through data sharing or common mechanisms is a different ball game altogether. But generally, it's data sharing and triangulation approach that I'm seeing across the globe. What is unique about India's One Health program is that we are here trying to set up a network of laboratories, at least 22 laboratories, which are biosafety level 3 laboratories, where you can actually handle high-risk pathogens of any sector. So basically, if the different government departments have come together to nominate their BSL-3s to become a part of this national network, so ICMR has nominated a few, DBT, Department of Biotechnology, CSIR, Animal Husbandry, ICAR, all have nominated quite a few labs to be a part of this network. They all are now being sensitized to test for every pathogen which is of outbreak importance across animal, human, and environment sectors.
okay.
So if I'm working in a human lab, I can't tell that I will not test an animal sample because that's not my mandate. That is my mandate now. So because what happens is we spend a lot of time in transporting samples, in waiting for the reports. So the whole idea is have a very nationally representative network. And whenever there is an outbreak in a particular zone, refer samples to the nearest lab. And the nearest lab should be very well equipped to test any kind of sample that may come in and out.
Human or animal.
Yeah, both human, animal, environment, as well as high-risk pathogens and even low-risk pathogens, because you have to test a series of samples to kind of come to a conclusion that this is not the common ones and I need to test relatively rarer ones. So all those capacities we are trying to build through lot of trainings, lot of hand-holding, funding, and giving them specific reagents and kits. So that is work in progress.
Sure.
The other thing that's unique about India's One Health mission is that this also brings together surveillance programs, model surveillance programs to detect spillovers at the animal-human interface. So now we are preemptively doing surveillance in slaughterhouses, in bird sanctuaries, and very soon we will be launching surveillance in zoos also to understand what jumps from human to animals, irrespective of whether it causes an outbreak, but to understand the spillovers at a very, very early stage so that we can be prepared with countermeasures. So if I don't know what will jump, what will spill across the interface, how will I start making countermeasures?
So you're saying that it's proactive in that sense before the outbreak has happened.
But these are model programs that we are now trying. It's not everywhere, but in a select settings. And once we get a sense of how we need to go about it, we'll hand it over to the program to do it on a routine basis. But that's one very proactive effort that we are really trying to undertake under the National One Health Mission, besides many more, like making countermeasures, building response teams at the state level, all those things, and sensitizing animal husbandry people also to work on similar mode for animal infections also. So and bringing wastewater surveillance, novel pathogen discovery. So those are a lot of approaches which are going into this particular program, which I foresee will really make India very pandemic ready in future.
I'm just wondering, Dr. Gupta, that when a country sort of makes its approach or is sort of strengthening its One Health mission approach, what are the factors that go into consideration? I mean, you mentioned the United States having a sort of vertical silo-led, but be really good in data and triangulation. And you've spoken about India's approaches, but I'm wondering, are there other factors? Are there cultural factors? Are there eating habits? Are there geographies? Are there landscapes, etc.? that also, and possibly even sort of how our governance is structured, right? How our ministries are structured, that need to be taken into cognizance as you are building out this approach?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, but I think it starts right from the people who are working in various ministries and departments. Like if I'm working in the domain of One Health, first of all, I should believe that this kind of an approach can make a difference. So that belief amongst all the people who are involved in this particular landscape is extremely important. And I think by repeated sensitizations of the departments and PSA leading this initiative, sensitizing everyone, and the PM has also spoken about the National One Health Mission, and coming from the Honorable PM makes a lot of difference. And we were also hoping that if he could just put it in one Mann Ki Baat session, then it will really, really reach the masses and they would understand. Yeah. So I think a lot of sensitization first of the people who are there, then streamlining the mechanisms in the ministry, because our mechanisms somehow involve a lot of paperwork, lot of permissions, lot of approvals. So the whole idea of the One Health Mission is that if I'm the nodal officer who has to act on behalf of ICMR, as soon as I'm notified by NCDC that, look, this is NJORT, it's just dashing to the field, I don't need any approvals, I simply have to go within a matter of hours. And even for a lab, whenever there is a sample at their doorstep, they are expected to have with them ready all the testing reagents, kits, they are supposed to buy that, stockpile that, have the SOPs for that, and should not wait for their departmental approvals to accept that sample, test it, or for that matter, give the report. It should be very, very fast track. But we are hoping that with the continued vigor that is being put into this mission, we will someday reach at a stage that as soon as we receive it, we consider that it's our duty to rush through the field. We are not supposed to wait for anything. And our department also doesn't question us that why did you go without any approvals? It's supposed to be like that.
From the sounds of it, it is a mammoth exercise, right? And I'm wondering, how does this then happen at a global level? Like, what is the public infrastructure or global infrastructure that is in place when it comes to the sharing of this kind of knowledge or sharing of data?
So, for example, in India, we recently detected a case of human avian influenza in part of the country. So, it was our duty as soon as we came to know about the case through the International Health Regulations 2005, we are supposed to notify it to the global community. And this office sits within the National Center for Disease Control, NCDC. So anytime we have an unusual occurrence of a Nipah case or a H5N1 case or any usual disease which is not reported in India, we are supposed to immediately report it to the IHR, and the IHR has to communicate it to the global community. That's the mechanism that we follow, and we will continue to follow that mechanism. And besides the IHIP, which is the national database now of public health, hosted by NCDC. So all these signals, all these cases are supposed to be integrated into IHIP, and the One Health related information will also be triangulated with the IHIP to make it a national portal for data sharing and early dissemination of information to the global community. And for every country, it's the same mechanism, IHR 2005, through which they communicate their information. And that's how it is portrayed on the global portals like the WHO, the CDC. The same thing we followed when we had Zika virus outbreaks for the first time in India.
We're talking about One Health, but I know that there is a growing conversation about One Digital Health as well. And I'm wondering whether that sort of acts as like this Lego block, or is sort of a unifying construct that furthers your mission here on India's National One Health. How does that play a role?
Using technology for data integration is one of the key pillars rather. And the Department of Biotechnology along with NCDC, they are working together that currently IHIP has been able to encourage various vertical programs to put data into their database. And ICMR also has made conscious efforts to put our data of our viral research and diagnostic labs into the IHIP database. So the first effort is to integrate various data pieces from the wildlife and forest side, from the animal husbandry side with the IHIP portal. And then only once we are done with that, which is again a mammoth task, as you just said a couple of minutes ago. So then it has to be taken to the next level of global data sharing. We do share data with the global bodies on a piecemeal, I would say. All the sequencing information that India generates goes into the GISAID, which is the global database. It also goes into the gene bank if because GISAID's mandate is very limited. And many other things that we do, we publish papers and we disseminate the information to the global researchers. So those kind of data sharing mechanisms, and even the whole of influenza data that India generates goes to WHO as a norm, because that's how they determine the composition of the influenza vaccines that have to be used across the world. So that's a mandatory submission that India makes every year. And even we submit the isolates to them, the influenza isolates, because they are the ones which are distributed to the global vaccine manufacturers to make the vaccine. So that's the source of WHO for the global community. So we do that on a regular basis. But if there are mechanisms for other diseases also, I think we would not have any reservations in adhering to that.
Dr. Gupta, I want to try and stitch the conversation to a close. How do you see the next 5 to 10 years? Primarily, what would be the metric of success or impact or effectiveness, so to speak? Because a large part of the work is also in prevention of it or tackling an outbreak before it becomes big. How could we say 5 years down the line or a decade down the line that this approach has been successful and robust?
Yeah, so I think the primary issue is that we have been discussing data sharing. So if we are able to achieve transparency in data sharing across sectors and have a common database, which would give us some trends or signals so that we are able to catch infections at an early stage or spillovers at an early stage, that would be, I think, a very huge achievement if we could really do that. Besides that, if you look at how we develop vaccines or diagnostics or monoclonals today, vaccines in particular, we are heavily dependent on technology transfers. Our industry is superb. We are the pharmacy of the world. We give 60% of the vaccines to the world. But how? Majorly by tech transfers. So if we are able to gear up our academia to really bring out novel platforms, today we have to bring all the new platforms from the West. So if India starts making those platforms on their own and we hold IP licensure of at least 5 such technologies, I think India has done it. So connecting, and we do have capacity, a tremendous capacity in our academia, but again it's very fragmented. And nobody has the mandate to produce those medical countermeasures for 5 diseases I have to make vaccines. Nobody has that mandate. So given that mandate in a very, very structured way, and if we are able to develop some novel platforms, contemporary platforms, and which are actually other parts of the world are developing, if we can do it on our own and even demonstrate for 5 vaccines, I think we are there. So it's just a matter of, as you said, stitching the pieces together, fragmented academia, R&D, fragmented industry approach, and even the funders, they don't know where to invest, who is doing what. So I think stitching all together and holding those pieces to really make India emerge as a major R&D hub rather than a tech transfer and manufacturing hub, I think that's the major thing that we really can achieve in the next 5 years.
So you do believe that that's the way to go? That's sort of the next frontiers for both research and tech, that you incubate it here,
yes,
right, and not through it.
And also bringing in a lot of AI into the foray. Currently, we are not using it much in One Health, but it has tremendous potential. So bringing in AI to strengthen our hands, both for development of newer technologies, as well as surveillance for that matter, for early detection of signals. So I think we have to be very, very contemporary in our approaches, and that's what we hope to, where to go through this National One Health mission.
Dr. Nivedita, this has been absolutely fascinating and a great learning for me, and I'm sure for much of our audience. Is there anything that you'd like to add, something that I haven't asked to perhaps explain this concept or this approach a little bit better. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, one thing I would like to add is that ICMR and the entire One Health mission, for that matter, would really, really encourage the youth of the country to be a part of the National One Health mission in whatever way they can be. Every individual in this country would say that government hasn't done this. But government cannot sit in every nook and corner of the country, in the forest fringes, in wildlife settings. So wherever there are humans, if they are aware of what the signals could be, if something unusual that you see in your water, in your air, in your environment, in your animal health, or your neighbors or your cattle, I think raise an alarm to the public health system and trigger a response mechanism there. So that would really gear up our capacities very, very, I would say many-fold, and would help us in combating these infectious diseases much, much early. Currently, we are very reactive. So we have to be proactive, and that will really come through the engagement of all the citizens of this country, and particularly the youth, the school children, the medical college graduates. Everybody can become a part of this mission and make it successful.
Yeah, that will give you eyes and ears manifold, right? If anyone's been watching this conversation, Dr. Nivedita, and this has sort of piqued their interest, they want to know more about the One Health mission, the One Health approach, maybe globally, is there any recommendation you'd have of something they could read, something they could listen to?
Yeah, so 2 readings I would recommend that if you visit the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office website,
Sure.
then there is a National One Health Mission document, which is known as the mission document. And the mission document clearly spells out what are the objectives of this mission. And I think 3 years ago in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, there was an issue of Indian Journal of Medical Research, which was completely devoted on One Health, and it's freely available on the website, and anybody who's interested in scientific reading can actually download what are the symptoms, manifestations of various diseases. So all that can be picked up from there. Otherwise, there's lot of global literature that is available on the websites of each of the global agencies.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nivedita. This has been most insightful. Well, I hope it's been worthy of your time as well. If you've been watching ICMR Radio, do remember that there is an entire repository of conversations that are unpacking health research with scientists, researchers, and the leadership of the ICMR.